Disclaimer: this video is made purely for speculation and for fun. It's not meant to speculate on what's realistic or feasible, just my idealistic ramblings. Please do not take this video overly seriously, and do not spam any of these companies or their employees' social media. Thank you. As you may or may not know, in recent news, Rooster Teeth's parent company AT&T have been seeking new buyers for Rooster Teeth, and by extension its intellectual properties, such as RWBY and Red vs. Blue. Keyword is seeking. Therefore, nothing has been set in stone yet, so let's not get carried away with anything sensational. However, this new change in management could lead to a new shift for the fate of RWBY. Now obviously, the well-being of Rooster Teeth's employees take precedence over all. I want them to have good and stable careers doing fulfilling work. No person should lose their livelihoods over a fictional work, no matter how much we care about said work. With that said, I will be talking here about the future of RWBY as an intellectual property and franchise, not about the future of Rooster Teeth itself. You might ask me, is it really appropriate talking about RWBY like a property to be passed around even when it was created by Monty and his team? It should belong to Rooster Teeth and Rooster Teeth alone. Well, first off, Rooster Teeth may own RWBY, but Rooster Teeth itself, along with all of its content, is owned by AT&T. So whether RWBY is separated from Rooster Teeth Productions and sold to another media group, or if production of RWBY is outsourced to someone other than Rooster Teeth, like what they did with Genlock, is entirely up to AT&T and out of Rooster Teeth's control, no matter how attached they are to it or how much sentimental value RWBY has to them. It may be hard to swallow, but it's the truth. By all intents and purposes, RWBY is an intellectual property first and a passion project second, and it will be treated as such by the people calling the shots. I am treating RWBY as exactly what it is, a franchise, but still one that I believe has a lot of creative potential, and therefore a lot of potential as a successful, long-lived franchise, and not just another acquisition to shelf and forget. With that said, let's face this reality. RWBY, if it continues under Rooster Teeth or somewhere else, will take new life under a company for all the good and ill that it entails. But if RWBY does indeed get rebooted or remade under new hands, it's obvious that expectations within the fandom will be high. As a result, many people have already speculated on what company or group will be helming this possible, though entirely theoretical, new beginning for RWBY. Some have mentioned Disney, as if we still haven't learned our lessons and want them absorbing more stuff into itself. Others have suggested Netflix, as their track record, at least in regards to their animated shows, have been pretty good, and I can see the arguments there. Personally, I've leaned towards Studio Orange myself, the group responsible for some truly revolutionary works in 3D CG anime like Land of the Lustrous and Beastars. I think if RWBY were to be revamped from the ground up, and it were to win over fans who only really were used to the original series, it should make a statement. I know a lot of fans are reserved when it comes to thinking about RWBY under new hands or as a new series, but if a trailer dropped tomorrow for a new RWBY made by a pioneer in the animation industry with gorgeous models like we've seen in their shows, I think it'd be very hard to not be excited. But of course, Studio Orange is just a studio and not a media group, and realistically, the most they could get is a license to adapt RWBY, not the actual IP itself. However, there is another company I wish to bring to your attention, and if you read the title, you already know who it is. When I think about a new fresh start for RWBY, whether it's a freshly renewed production or a full-blown remake, I think the only way to make it a worthwhile endeavor is to dream big. There's so much you can do with RWBY's world. Monty Yum and Rooster Teeth have created that world and stewarded it, telling Team RWBY's journey for the past 8 years. That can never be taken away from them. It is a mark of their success, the product of hundreds of animators, voice actors, artists, musicians, writers, and staff. That will always be RWBY's roots, its origin. And even then, there is still so much more to explore, so much more potential to realize. And I know many of you watch the show because you know it's lying just under the surface. RWBY has the potential to grow far beyond its original series, and it's clear from its comic crossovers, manga adaptations, and game crossovers that if just given the right push, it can really blow up and return with a bang. What company do I feel is able to best uncover that potential? What team of artists, creators, and visionaries do I feel have the best combination of skill, creativity, and love for the series to imbue it with newfound life? And who best understand the different parts that make it great? Who can take RWBY's character designs, visual style, hyper stylized action, and love for rock music and pull it all together to a working whole and elevate them to higher levels than ever before? I think that company is Arc System Works. As far as 3D CG anime visuals go, you'd be very hard pressed to find anything that can top Arc System Works, or ArcSys for short. They have led the charge in blurring the line between 3D animation and 2D anime, which began with Guilty Gear Xrd and would only continue to surpass itself by leaps and bounds with Dragonfall FighterZ, Granblue Fantasy Versus, and the currently upcoming Guilty Gear Strive. What's more, Arc System Works are no strangers to RWBY either, with characters like Team Ruby and Neo guest starring in BlazBlue Cross-Tag Battle. This beautiful collaboration owes itself to Mori Toshimichi, Chief Development Officer at ArcSys and the creator of BlazBlue. He's made no secret of it in interviews that he's a big fan of RWBY. It is quite apparent that he understands the personalities of the characters, not just in their lines, but in their fighting styles as well, conveyed through their in-game animations, and he has even expressed interest in personally helming the production of a RWBY fighting game. So, it's clear that there's rapport between ArcSys and Rooster Teeth, and RWBY itself aligns very well with Mori's interests and the high-energy, fantastical tone of their works. While it is highly unlikely that ArcSys are even capable of buying Rooster Teeth, because Rooster Teeth, as far as I know, almost triple the number of employees that ArcSys has, it's still entirely possible for them to acquire the RWBY IP on its own, or at least given full licensing rights by AT&T. But of course, there's one small wrinkle. Arc System Works isn't an animation studio, they're a game company. How are they going to create a new adaptation of RWBY? While it's not impossible for ArcSys to create their own anime using the RWBY property, allow me to bring forth a thought to you. If RWBY takes a new form under new production, that form does not necessarily have to be that of an animated series. If you ask most people what are RWBY's strongest points, their answer will usually be the action, the characters, and the world. The story, or rather the plot, tends to be secondary in interest. Imagine, if you will, if RWBY, the animated franchise, instead took on new life as a game franchise. I think a lot of the inherent weaknesses in RWBY would turn around to become its strengths. What do I mean by this? For one of them, RWBY, the animated series, suffered from a massive cast. Due to how the show is made, there is never enough screen time for so many characters. If you're a fan of the rest of Team Sun, or Coffee, or Team Auburn, or all these obscure characters, you're pretty much out of luck. The same goes for exploring the world of Remnant itself, and all of its different areas. But in a game, you can see your favorite character as many times as you want, because you'll be playing them, seeing them on screen for potentially hours, building a connection to them the whole time. You want more action scenes? That's the gameplay. You want new outfits? You've got skins and alternate color palettes. You want to see the world? You can have levels that can be set in any kingdom you want. If you ask me, RWBY's plot has never been its strongest point, which is pretty detrimental for a long-running animated series. But for a game, the action, in this case the gameplay, and the characters, in this case the playable roster, will always be at the forefront, and the story plays a secondary role to that. The story can be as simple or as complex as it wants, but the action and characters will always be in spotlight. While Arc System Works specializes in fighting games, and in this hypothetical future, they would definitely start RWBY as a standalone fighting game, if anything. The possibility of them branching into different genres is totally feasible. In the words of Daisuke Ishwatari, Chief Creative Officer at Arc System Works, Our forte might be fighting games, but we are in the midst of exploring many other genres to challenge the status quo of what video games can do. I believe that video games are an amazing tool for people from different backgrounds and cultures to share a single experience together. As such, the idea of, let's say, a RWBY hack and slash like Devil May Cry or Nier Automata, or team-based RPG like Genshin Impact, is not totally off the tables either. I find a Genshin-like game particularly cool to think about, as Genshin's 4-member party system works extremely well with RWBY's 4-person team structure. Imagine switching between RWBY, Wise, Blink, and Yang as you explore Remnant, or even form your own teams with your favorite characters, but without the gacha though. Screw gacha. Why I think Axis would work really well is also because of how much they could gain from acquiring RWBY as an IP compared to other companies, especially as their newest flagship title, alongside Guilty Gear and BlazBlue. Among all other companies, they stand to benefit the most from this license compared to any other media group or company in the East or West. RWBY itself fits right at home in the style of Arc System Works' flagship games. Everything from their trademark rock soundtracks to their colorful and diverse character designs to their skill in creating intense and visually explosive action are all hallmarks of their franchises, equally shared by RWBY in spades. With each RWBY game they make, Axis can continue expanding the world at their own pace. The lore, the relationships between the characters, and their designs. RWBY has a thriving community, depends on who you ask, but the air always does get pretty quiet between volumes. Waiting for each volume almost feels like an event in itself. The same would go for each new game. Yes, it would obviously take much more than a year to make a game, but the advantage is that fans can continue experiencing the world of Remnant just by playing it. And Axis has plenty of experience branching onto other media for their franchises. Both Guilty Gear and BlazBlue have been adapted into tons of existing side material in the form of drama CDs, manga, novels, and even an anime in the case of BlazBlue. Given the success of Japanese, or just generally Eastern games in the West and the greater English-speaking world nowadays, these companies are starting to branch out to include a more global audience. These days, the English voice talent for many Eastern games have gained equal standing and prominence alongside its native dub. Examples like Genshin Impact, which is a Chinese game, and the Capcom games like Monster Hunter and Devil May Cry come to mind. Some of them were even made with English as its default dub in the case of Dark Souls. What better opportunity then than to pick up this franchise, a Western anime hybrid with a relatively large existing community in the West, with a diverse cast and memorable character designs, as the new flagship title, and their first game truly marketed with Western localization as a core feature instead of a secondary add-on. While BlazBlue and Guilty Gear are Arc System Works' signature titles that have constantly evolved themselves over the decades, they have not since created a new original flagship series of the same scale, mainly focusing on games based on other licenses they don't own like Dragon Ball and Granblue Fantasy. If they acquired RWBY as their own intellectual property though, or gain exclusive licensing rights for it, they have the foundations of a world and its main cast already laid out for them, but all the freedom to expand on it and the potential to make it grow into something truly exciting. So, this is my letter to you, the audience, to consider. It is not meant to put down Rooster Teeth or trivialize what they've already done with RWBY, but I do believe that the series as we know it has had a long run, and is more than ready to evolve, grow, and reinvent itself for new audiences all over the world. If anything, I believe RWBY, despite its uncertain future, can become something even more successful than ever before. It just needs the right push and the right team behind it. Think of the original RWBY animated series as the foundations for different roads that can lead to something even cooler than what you can currently picture, but all secretly hope for. Would I be lying if I said I wouldn't be completely and utterly stoked to even have a small part in this hypothetical reborn franchise? Yes. But while I am a professional artist and hobbyist animator, Arc System Works obviously has some of the best creative talent in the business already. They certainly don't need my help for anything. But if anyone from Arc System Works actually watched this, you don't have to consider anything I've said as serious. It's meant to be a fun video exploring the possibilities that could await something like RWBY, and as a bit of encouragement for uncertain fans that not all endings have to be bad, but can instead lead into unprecedented new beginnings. And I, for one, would always be honored to help this series flourish in what little ways I can, whether in a professional capacity or just as a hobby with what I'm doing with my alternate universe fan project, RWBY Remnants. I truly wish the best of luck to everyone at Rooster Teeth and their futures, whose work on this series will always be remembered, regardless of where RWBY goes. And of course, thank you to Monty who planted the start of something special. A seed I hope can truly blossom into what we always knew it could become. Thank you for watching, and dream big.
Hey guys, Kat here. Thank you so much for watching. Please consider pledging to our Patreon, where your contribution will help us create more and even better content. If not, you can still help us out at no cost by liking the video and sharing your thoughts and support in the comments. Share it with your friends too, if you have any. Just kidding. Maybe. Follow Saitakun on Twitter, or join our Discord server if you want to stay up to date. And that's it. Have a great week, and see you next time.